Okay, this is quiz 8, question 1. Julia is the financial advisor for her company and is considering the purchase of an excavation equipment which will cost $99,000. Okay, now the purchase of this equipment is expected to save her company $13,186 at the end of every year for 8 years. At the end of the 8 years, she expects the excavation equipment to have a residual or an inflow value of $18,300. Okay, the company requires 4.7% rate of return. Round the present value to the nearest cent and round the NPV, which stands for net present value, to the nearest whole number, which is here we have what is the net present value of this equipment investment. Okay, let's have a look at this here. We're into investments and business decisions now. So it's a projection that's based on present value. Okay, so you have money in or present value in and present value out. All right, this we will come to in a while, where the money that comes in, the present value in, can be greater than the present value out. So that ends up with a positive net present value. Okay, it can be equal, present value in can be equal to the present value out, so the net present value will be 0. Or the net present value in can be less than the present value out, and then we get a negative net present value. All right, based upon that, decisions are made. So whether to accept or reject. So if the net present value is greater than or equal to 0, then the project might be accepted. Okay, if it is less, the net present value is less than 0, meaning it's negative, meaning that the present value in is less than the present value out, the project will be rejected. All right, so what I did, I copied the question 1. Let's make it a bit larger so we can see it better. And here I identify the quantities that we're quite familiar with. Okay, this is the company's considering purchasing this equipment for $99,000. Now they are expecting, they haven't bought it yet, they're expecting that it would save them $13,186 at the end of every year for 8 years. So they're expecting the equipment to last at least 8 years. Okay, now at the end of 8 years, they expect it to have a residual value, meaning they can sell it or somehow get $18,300 for the equipment. All right, now the company requires 4.7% rate of return. Now, one of the things you have to come to realize is that when this statement here, the compounding period in this case is not provided, assume it to be annually. So this here, this rate of return will be annually. So CY would be equal to 1. Okay, so let's put that in there. So that is the language that's used, or the terminology. It says 4.7% rate of return, and it is assumed, it is already understood that the compounding frequency is annually, which turns out that CY would be 1. Okay, so the whole idea is to calculate present value in and present value out. All right, so we know these, we can identify them in the question, and then we can do calculations. Okay, so let's go back to our question here and display our calculator. So here we go. All right, so cash inflow. So PY is what? Well, PY is 1 because it's at the end. These payments, all right, these savings are at the end of every year. Okay, so this is 1, and we just discussed about CY, that CY is 1 because this rate of return is understood to be compounded annually. So that will be 1. Okay, we leave this for now. That would be the residual inflow, sorry, which will be 18,300, which we will discuss in a little while. So let's take care of this $13,186. Now that is a payment that is being received. So 13186 is there, and it is positive because it's being received. All right, the present value is what has to be computed. Okay, and since all comparisons on present value, residual also, there'll have to be a computation of the present value. All right, let's pick up the interest rate. What is the interest rate? The interest rate is 4.7 rate of return. That is what is being sought after. So this would be 4.7. And if you wish, we could also fill in over here. Okay, so these will also be 1 and 1. All right, and then we can see what other numbers are required. Now here, the future value would be 0. All right, but let's look now. We can address the residual flow. You're probably wondering what is $18,300. That is 8 years at the end of 8 years. That's 8 years in the future. The value, the residual value would be 18,300. So this column here was designed for that, and it is a future value of 18,300. Now payment is 0. You don't get any any payment from that. We're not making any payments into it. We're not receiving payments on the residual flow, that is. You're receiving payments on the equipment. Okay? All right, so we can proceed to start. We have the information and we can use the calculator. Okay, so second IY and PY is 1, CY is 1, and these payments are the end. So 1, enter, and CY is also 1. Okay, so how many years is it? It will be for 8 years. Okay, 8 years. So we do what we know to do, 8 second n. And that value for n will be 8. Now that will also be here for the residual. Why? Because it's at the end of 8 years. All right, interest rate is 4.7, so we go 4.7 IY. Present value we're computing. Okay, payment in this first one is 13186, and then we enter that as the payment. All right, 0 for the future value. We're doing one at a time, so we do this one here first, and we will put the 0 in for the future value. And then we go compute the present value. And the present value works out to be negative 86267.08. We're rounding to the nearest cent. Okay, so that was for the equipment over the 8 years. But at the end of the 8 years, it is worth 18,300. So let's come over here now, and we will do the computation here for this 18,300. All right, all the numbers are the same, except payment now we have to put in 0. Okay, this 0 right here. We must be careful because right now payment does have a number in it. So we put in 0 for the payment, and then we have the future value. Future value right now, let's recall the future value. It is 0, but for this one, to calculate the present value of the residual value, we have to put in 18,300, and we compute the present value. And for that, we get a number that is 12672.95. We're rounding to 2 decimal places right here. Okay, so those two are the two numbers for the present value. One is for the payments and one is for the residual value. Okay, so that is what? Though that is inflow. Yes, that is coming in, correct? Those are savings, and as it says up here, it's cash inflows. All right, so present value inflows. Now, where's the outflow? The outflow is right here. It's 99,000. If the company was to purchase the equipment, it would pay $99,000. Okay, so let's go to our Word document here. All right. Maybe we can have them both up and then we can see them side by side, and that might be a better situation if we can get it to behave properly. Okay, so let's see if we can pull this over as far as we can and get some location. So PV in, let's go now and go with the PV in. So the PV in is giving us what? Okay, present value. And let's go, we want the present value and we want it in. So we go here and then we put in and then we go out of there. And so what is the present value? In would be, yes, 8686267.08. All right, it's these two numbers here, this one here and this one from the residual value of the equipment. All right, so that one is what? 12672.95. All right, so those are the two numbers, and if we add them up, let's add them up. We have our calculator. We can go. We have one already. So why don't we just make that positive? Okay, let's put the number in. 12672.95. Okay, that's this number. That's this number right there, right here. And then we'll put this one in. We'll add that. We're adding 8682667.08. And then we click on equal and we get 98940. Let's move the calculator over here. We get, all right, so let's click in here. It's taking a little while. All right, we finally got it, 98940.03. Okay, that is the present value in. So 98940.03. So this is one answer here. All right, now what is the present value out? Okay, the present value out, present value, and we go out, all right, is equal to what? Well, it's equal to, if we go back over here, let's move the calculator, and we go over here, we can see, or let's make it easier and go back up here, all right? So the present value out, this is the number right here, this 99,000, okay? So let's go here and maybe document it. So that's the present value, and we will make sure we put out, all right? And then put equal to what? 99000. All right. Now we can use a different color so it's distinct, and that will keep it from getting confused. All right. So use the turquoise, and then we are all right. Okay. So back to where we were. So PV out is 99000. Okay. So how do we get net present value? Well, let's go back up here. Net present value is PV in minus PV out. All right, so let's do that. We have the PV in, we have the PV out. Okay, so net present value is equal to what? 98. All right, maybe we should put it in PV in, okay, minus PV out. All right, so we're all organized. There's no confusion. PV in is 98940.03 minus 99000. Okay, and that is equal to what? Well, if we take this number and we subtract 99000, we get a negative number. It's a small negative number, but it is negative, 559.97. Now, if you read the instructions, it will say that, what does it say? It will say to, okay, it's not there, so it's over here. Let's come in here. It will say to round present value to the nearest cent and round the net present value to the nearest whole number or the nearest dollar. So if we follow that instruction over there, all right, to round to the nearest whole number, the nearest dollar, in our case, this number right here, we will round it to, it will round up to 60. So the net present value, but it's negative. We must put in that negative, okay? Would be 60. All right, so this is the correct answer. We must have the negative in there. Maybe we should take care of that over here also and put it all in green so that it's all encompassed. All right, so negative 60. So what do we put down here? Well, the net present value is negative 60. All right, it says if the net present value is negative, enter it as a negative number. If it's 0, enter 0. Okay, now should the equipment be purchased? Okay, decision time. What's the decision? Here it is. Criterion rule for a required rate of return. If the net present value is negative as it is here, then it is to reject. So should this equipment purchase be made according to the net present value criterion? The answer will be no, reject. Okay, so let's submit and see what happens. All right, so we're finished. Let's make it large so we can see it properly. And we got all the answers correct. Everything is correct. All right, now while we are here, there's something else that can be looked at, and that has to do with this residual. Now, maybe not surprisingly to what you might think, if we were to move it over here and make one set of calculations, would it work? Well, we have answers. We have answers and we can execute. All right, so what it's saying, put this number over here and make one calculation, correct? Instead of 0, we put 18,300. All right, so we have to get the calculator, correct? Yes, we have to get the calculator, of course. Yes, so we go back to this format here. So let's go back. We have 1 and 1 for the PY and CY. All right, let's stop the disturbance and get it over here. All right, and we can bring up our calculator now and establish it. Okay, so the calculator is established. All right, let's move it in a little bit closer. Okay, so 1 and 1 for PY and CY. So we're just dealing over here. We're going to take this here and we're going to put it over here. Yes, of course. Of course, it wouldn't show correct on this calculation. It's just for illustration. And this number here will definitely change. All right, so now it's 8 years. The 8 stays for, I mean, it is 8 years. So if we do put in 8 years, we get second NN, and we do get the 8. If you're wondering where the 8 was coming from, it was right up here. Okay, 8 years, and at the end of 8 years. There was 8 years for the payments and 8 years for the residual value. All right, so that is all done. Now 4.7, we can just recall it, and it is 4.7. Now the present value, it's to be computed, okay? But we wouldn't worry about this. If you wish, we could put the CPT in there so you understand what is happening, and this side here would disappear. All right, so let's just try it. All right, so payments are still the same. So recall the payment. So now we put this payment back in there. 13186, 13186. Okay, that's a payment. All right, and the future value is 18,300. 18,300. Okay, future value. And if we compute the present value, what do we get? Well, look at that number. Look at it very carefully. And let's go over here now. All right, what did we get? PV in. Does that number here look like this number here? Yes, it is. Okay, so the calculation can be done in one step or with one set of data, or utilizing putting in a number for the future value, which in this case was the 18,300. And the computation would be just all right. Okay, instead of having it over here, we have it over here. And so this here, we have no use for it. Okay, these can all be zeros. Just so that you know, let's put in all zeros, and then you will know that these ones are all gone. They're gone, gone, gone. Okay, they're useless now. We don't need them. All right, because everything is on the other side there. All right, so one computation. We cannot put a number in. Of course, it will be wrong because this setup here is set up for two steps, as you can see. Well, two parts, whichever way you'd like to see it. But it does produce the correct future value as we are seeing right here. So it can be done in one set of computations. All right. So that will appear in the second question, which we can go to now. All right. So let's part ways with this one now, and let's go to question number 2. Okay, so let's go in there. We'll minimize this, maybe, yes, and minimize that, and get the calculator in its right position in the right corner there. Okay, so let's look at this question here. So you see it has a setup for just one set of calculations. So Jared is a financial advisor. Same idea. The purchase of the evacuation equipment is $77,000. Okay. The purchase of this equipment is expected to save the company 7416 at the end of every year for 14 years. So let's put it in. 7416 is the payment. Okay. This number is this number here. It's at the end of every year. Okay, so that's what we need for PY. So PY is 1. All right, the purchase of this equipment is expected to save the company 7416 at the end of every year for 14 years. So we've done that. At the end of the 14 years, expects the evacuation equipment to have a residual value of 12,200. Now that is the future value. So 12200. Right? And the rate of return is 5.5%. So we will put 5.5 for IY. And what else is there? Yes, rate of return, remember, from the previous calculation we had, it says that when the rate of return is not specified, yes, if the compounding period is not provided, assume it to be an annually compounding interest. All right, so that is an annually compounding interest. So this value for CY will also be 1. And we are computing the present value. Okay, what is the present value? That's the first part of the question. Okay, let's go. Second, IY. And 1 is in there, 1 for PY, 1 for CY, and they're already there. So let's come out of there. All right, how many years? It's going for 14 years. Okay, so we put in 14. Actually, it's 14 times 1, so it will be 14. And N is 14. Okay, IY is 5.5, so we put in 5.5 for IY. Present value is what we're going to compute, so let's pass on that. The payments are, each payment is 7416. That's payment is positive because it's being received. 12,200 for the residual value is there, and if that's in the future. Now we compute the present value, and what does it show up as? Well, it shows up as a negative number. So let's see if all of this works. 82.18. That is rounded to the nearest cent right here. All right, so we can try it just to make sure that it will take that negative number, and it does. Okay. Okay, if the net present value is what we have to find. So how do we find net present value? Well, it's present value in minus present value out. So maybe just to see the data might be a good idea for us to copy and then for us to paste in here. All right, so let's go down, and maybe we should go to another page to start fresh and go to quiz 8 question 2. All right, so let's put the question in there, and hopefully it works. Yes, it does. Okay, so the present value, the net present value of this equipment. Okay, what we did was what? Well, we found a PV. We found the PV in. Is that right? Yes, it is correct. That is what we found. And PV in was equal to, where is that number? It's somewhere hiding behind there. Is it? No, it's down below. So let's do a little bit more of maneuvering. Maybe move that over a little bit. And then we move this in here. And we can see the two properly together. So PV in, let's just take the numerical value, 76882.18. All right, so that is PV in. Okay, we haven't gotten to the present value out as yet. All right, but that's part of the answer. So maybe we can put it in green. Okay, so what is present value out? Well, PV, and if we want the one that's out, it is what? Well, it is actually the cost, which is right on top here, $77,000. Okay, so let's put PV out is equal to the cost, which is equal to 77,000. All right, so that's the cost. So now we can get net present value, correct? We know that. We know it from right here. We can actually just go and do some copy and paste and make life easy for us. Why bother to do all the typing? We use the technology and we put that in, but these numbers will, of course, be different. That one will be different, and so will be this one. All right. Okay, at least we think so. So 76882.18 minus 77000. Okay, so that will give us an answer. So why don't we activate our calculator? So that is the number there. We make it positive. We subtract 77000, and we get a number looking like negative, negative 117.82. All right, so round to the nearest dollar. Net present value would be negative 118. Remember, we must keep the sign. All right, so the answer is negative 118. This answer is, of course, the more accurate answer, but that is the answer, 118. So let's go down and put in the entry. The entry is negative 118. So what is the criteria for that, or criterion? Because it's a singular, it's one decision. So the criterion is that if it is negative, right here, the net present value is less than 0, meaning it's negative, it is to be rejected. So Should this equipment purchase be made according to the NPV criterion, the net present value? The answer will be no, a resounding no. And hopefully all of it is correct, and it is. Okay, so that's the first two questions of that quiz. And with that, I will terminate